I've referred repeatedly to the peoples of the north, the nomadic peoples, the pastoral peoples, the people outside of what we might call China proper, although now they've been incorporated into the People's Republic of China, and were in fact incorporated before 1949 as well, many of them. Today we really need to take this topic to take it on head on with certainly the most successful group of nomads, the Mongols. The northern border of Chinese dynasties was a border in many senses. It was in the first instance, a strategic border, a border which marked a zone in which, and a zone that moved, by the way, a zone in which peoples fought, the armies of the south against the cavalries of the north. Eventually, that border, as a strategic border, be rivaled by the seacoast, particularly the southeastern coast. But at this point in Chinese history, the 12th, 13th century, it is the primary strategic border. It was also a political border between states, between the Sung state, the Jin state of the Jurchens, the Sha state of the Tanguts, and at times this border moved. There was a frontier zone, and forts might advance and might be withdrawn. It was also, as a political border that had to be defended, an expensive project, a drain on the northern economy. We think today of that border as the Great Wall, but in fact, rarely was the Great Wall the actual border between peoples, between states. Finally, we should think of this as a cultural border and an economic border. In this case, the kind of border we're talking about is the border between the steppe, the grasslands, the arid grasslands of the north, and the sown, the agricultural farmland of the south. The contrast between steppe and sown can be thought of in lots of ways. The northern part, the steppe, the desert, and then further north, the forests of the far north, the sown, farming, dryland farming in the north, rice farming, wetland farming in the south, nomads who rode on horse and ate sheep, sedentary farmers who used oxen to plow and ate chicken and pigs, nomads who lived in yurts, tents that they could pack up and take with them as they moved, and still today we find yurts in Mongolia, and the farmers in the south, the sedentary farmers living in houses in villages. Northerners, the northern peoples, living as tribes, organized into tribes. The southerners, the land of the sedentary, the land of the sown, organized into villages, tax-paying villages, confederations of clans among the nomadic peoples, the pastoralists, administrative hierarchies of provinces, prefectures, counties, cities in the south. In the north, no permanent government. Confederations sometimes single rule, centralized rule, but by and large, a permanent centralized government was not the norm. And in the south, permanent centralized government bureaucracy was the norm. The rulers of the north are not called emperors, they were called khans. The rulers of the south, emperors. So this border between north and south, between, in this case, the nomadic north and the sown south, between the steppe and the sown, was a border of many different kinds. But fundamentally, it would be a border between two different ways of life. Now, who are these nomads, these pastoral people? From the perspective of the farmers, the sedentary people of the south, the agriculturalists of the south, they're very different. They live with their flocks. They move with the seasons. When times are hard, they can retreat to the north. And to some extent, we think of the forest peoples, the hunter-gatherer peoples of the more distant north, on the north side of the Gobi Desert, for example, as a different kind of northern people. But perhaps, in fact, the nomads and the hunter-gatherers of the forests were somewhat interchangeable, that nomads, when times got hard, went to the forests forest people, when times got better, might put together horses and go south. Let's look at the map to see the configuration of powers in the 12th century. To the south, we have Sung. Sung had lost control over the North China Plain, the rich, prosperous, densely populated North China Plain, to an invasion by the Jurchens in the 1120s, who had established the Jin dynasty. The Tanguts had established their Shisha dynasty or Shah dynasty in the 1030s. Now, the Sung had had a northern border going north of the North China Plain, but sometimes south of the Great Wall, to defend it against the peoples to the north. Now the Jurchen's Jin dynasty and the Tanguts had their own northern border to defend against these peoples here to the north, the Tatars, the Mongols, and so on. In fact, what we're looking at is an area that we today call Mongolia, but which in the 12th century was still composed of different nomadic peoples. The Tatars, the Mongols, our main concern today, but at that point not the most powerful of tribes by any means, the Onguts, the Merkits, the Keryats, the Naimans. In the 12th century, the Mongols would have to take on the Tatars and all the other peoples of the steppe and conquer them one by one. It would then move against the Tanguts, then against the Jurchens. Ultimately, much later, after conquering the rest of Central Asia and invading the West, it would conquer Sung. Today, we look at this area and call it Mongolia, and we call all the peoples who live here Mongols. The peoples of the northeast would be the Manchus, we'll talk about them later, the Jurchens at this point in time, but the people of the north would, Mongolia today, Inner Mongolia, are Mongols, as one tribe, so to speak. But in fact, in the 12th century, the Mongols were a single tribe among many, many tribes, located on the eastern part of the steppe, up by the forest, and they were a marginal people at best. They were not one of the central strong tribes among the pastoralists. And that there were other northern peoples as well, the Tanguts and the Jurchens, who had established empires with emperors who were also at the same time Khans. But in the 12th century, these tribes were united under a single Khan, and with the army that resulted, that leader went out to conquer most of the known world. That leader, Chinggis Khan, began his life with the name Temujin, will be the subject of our story today.